t'aimer et follement, mon amour, de t'aimer et follement nuit et jour. Un jour, si tu veux, on peut partir tous deux, partir en se moquant de ceux qui enragent en nous voyant.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of You've Been Served Global Edition. I am your host, as always, Ken Corbin, and today we have a special guest with us. She is the face behind Breakfast at Lauren's. She's a nurse, she's a model, and also a tumbling coach. She's part of a new generation that's blending platform with purpose, and we're very excited for her to be here. Lauren, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Oh my goodness, what an intro. Got some shoes to fill.
I think you've already done that.
I appreciate it.
So how are you finding Paris so far?
It's beautiful. I love walking everywhere. I love the weather, even though Kit wasn't so happy with the rain. I love the environment for sure.
Well, we love your work, and we think you're onto something big, even if you may not know it yet.
Thank you.
So once again, very happy to have you here. So tell us what it's like, just a typical day for you. I mean, you do so much. It's breakfast at Lauren's, it's being a nurse, and the other activities that you have. How do you balance that?
I always joke that I've never repeated a day in my life. There are some days where I go, to work and I go do my night shift at the hospital as a nurse. And I come home and I sleep for my 10 hours and I just carry on, that same cycle for a week. There's days like right before I came here where I'll go do that night shift and I'll leave and I'll go do a photo shoot and sleep in my car for 2 hours and then go back to work, I think a lot of it is just very much so focused on what I prioritize, as with any job, but trying to balance it with my well-being in general as well and family and friends. But yeah, like I said, no one day is as similar at all to the next. But yeah, I enjoy it nonetheless. Yeah. It's a little bit hectic.
Obviously, they're different. So you work in an ER as a nurse?
I work in a surgical step-down unit, so a PCU. Okay. So anything that I always tell people, the best way to explain it is that if someone leaves either the emergency room or the ICU or a surgery, they'll come to us and we kind of monitor things every single hour or around the clock. And we kind of decide if they need to go to the ICU and things are going bad, or if they can go to a normal floor and things are getting better. There is an ongoing thing where if they don't have a bed in the ICU, they might send them to us as well. But a step right below the ICU though.
You kind of touched on it earlier because I was wondering how you transitioned from the ER or being at the hospital and then the next day getting prepared for the camera. And obviously, you just said your schedule was kind of tight. Yeah. You worked overnight, caught a flight to be here.
Yes.
So does that happen a lot to where you have maybe a photo shoot, you have or something that you have to do and it's right after a shift at the hospital?
Yeah, so I'm very grateful to have a lot of friends that I live in O'Fallon, Illinois, so about 35 minutes outside of St. Louis. And a lot of what I do is in St. Louis or further away. So I'm very lucky to have a lot of friends that are like, if you need to sleep at my house, or anything like that, because, sometimes driving 40 minutes home and then turning around, that's already an hour and a half that I've lost out of the day. So there's been a decent amount of times where I'll take an hour nap in my car and, do my makeup in the car and go to the next place. But that's why I don't want to say selective because I feel like I do a lot, but I am very selective with what is important to me and what is worth that, what is worth losing the extra 4 hours and
My wife and I used to refer to that as running and gunning.
Yeah. That sounds about right. I don't even fully know what that means, but it sounds
It means
accurate.
just from one thing to the next. It is nonstop. Some days it's like that. It's nonstop.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I think that's my personality type is I love to have a toe in everything.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I was never like that up until about 3 years ago. I was very introverted and I was like, leave me in my house and don't ever bug me, please. You guys met me right when I decided out of the blue one day that I was like, I'm going to make myself an extrovert. And I'm going to, so you guys met me about 2 weeks after that, which is so funny. But Yeah, no, I for sure love to go. I have to remind myself to take a step back sometimes.
Well, we love your content. We love your story. And we wouldn't have guessed that because you just seem so confident. Where does that come from? Is it the tumbling and I guess you have to be being a nurse because you're making a difference, you're saving lives?
Yeah, I guess so. Like I said, it's interesting because up until about 2 years ago, it was the exact opposite. I don't know what made me wake up one day and was like, I'm going to have a whole personality switch today. But that's basically what it was. I think I am very fortunate and my parents are very uplifting. You know, not everyone gets that kind of background where they come home and are praised and being like, hey, we're really proud of you. And I don't take that for granted at all. But I think tumbling is also a solo sport, and I think that builds your confidence a lot to have to go stand up in front of a stadium full of people and the judges and everyone, and you kind of have to have that confidence in yourself that you're not going to go flying or fake it if you don't have that confidence. But I think all of those things added together definitely attributed to that confidence in nursing and in life as well. Yeah. I think it just keeps building in the least narcissistic way as possible to say that.
Well, that kind of, as a parent, do your parents worry? Because Kid and I are parents as well. Mm-hmm. And I have a daughter that's also on the nursing program. So while what you do and being a nurse is exciting, it's also kind of scary because you get exposed to a lot of different things, both in your field, but also in the social platform, So how do you reassure your dad that, hey, I'm okay, I'm going to be going here? How do you tell your parents that, hey, oh, by the way, I'm going to Paris and to a show?
Yeah, it's so funny. So both of my parents were in the medical field, so that part doesn't necessarily scare them. I'll come home and tell them some very off-the-wall things, and they're like, yeah, it's another day, However, up until I was about 18, they were even like, don't cross the river. You don't need to leave our hometown,
Very protective.
So I was shocked whenever they were both like, yes, you should jump on this opportunity.
Really?
And my mom, don't get me wrong, she was still like, send me your hotel confirmation. I just want to have everyone's number, But I think they're kind of realizing now, and I think it attributes to some of that confidence and that belief in myself, too, that you said that I, as an adult, am able to figure it out and navigate it on my own. I think I'm 24, and I think we're just all kind of noticing that this past year. But I don't know that there's necessarily a reassurance. I think it's just them seeing that I am navigating things on my own and that they can trust me. And I think that's an important part too, is I have no hesitation to, FaceTime them and be like, this is actually where I'm at, and all the things. But I think it's just a mutual trust at the end of the day, for sure.
That's great. And I think it helps that both of your parents have been in the medical field, because one of the questions that I always have is they never really prepare you and teach you about the traumatic part and the things that you may see being in the nursing field. Mental health and just being prepared to deal with the stressors. Do you come home and talk to them about it sometimes?
I do, and I am I love vouching for people to go to therapy, especially in the nursing field. I feel like it's hard to not take those traumatic stories that you see and hear, and even people's backgrounds that have nothing to do with why they're in the hospital. I find it hard to work that 40 plus hours a week and not carry it home, As I said, I'm a very go person, so I don't know that I give myself much time to process it. But when I do, I'm very lucky to have a good support system that even if they don't get it, they're there for me. But, I have a lot of people that do kind of understand that as well, in the medical field and outside of it. But I agree with you. I never really thought about it, how they don't teach you that trauma part. I'm like, what's a proper trauma response? But yeah, I don't know, especially now that I'm working it full time. That's been something I've been navigating the past year and a half or so, of like, how do I separate the two things and not take it home with me very frequently? Yeah.
I don't think they can teach you a proper trauma response because it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
But they don't even discuss it, because however you decide to process or compartmentalize that is okay. And I think your parents understand that. And as you said, it's a mutual trust. Mm-hmm. How do you decide the content? Because I notice it could be you're teaching about diabetes, or sometimes it's a little more lighthearted. Is there a particular reason why you did that segment about diabetes?
Nothing specific. At the end of the day, my goal long term is to be a diabetes educator. I want to work with kids. I want to teach them how to do insulin shots on the little teddy bears. And so if anything that can kind of get me a foot in with that, no matter if it's working with Omnipod, which is my insulin pump company, or Dexcom, which is what tracks my blood sugar, or if it is taking diabetes education classes with the hospital. I love to educate people on all of it, though, because especially as a kid, I was told, I had a teacher one time tell me, I know your blood sugar's low, but you can wait till the end of class. And I'm like, I don't think everyone fully understands the difference between type 1, type 2, what it is. I think you hear the word diabetes and people are like, oh, you can't have that cupcake,
Exactly.
And I don't think anyone is educated on the fact that, this has nothing to do with my sugar intake. It has to do with carb counting and the fact that my pancreas doesn't work. But I've been told a lot. And my parents, when I was diagnosed, they were, no sleepovers. You're pulled out of sports. And it wasn't a punishment to me. I understand that,
right.
But it's terrifying to them too. And they were in the medical field, so I could only imagine people that have no idea about it at all, that have kids that have diabetes. But yeah, I want to educate on it, even if it's something lighthearted, and look at this cool sticker that keeps my insulin pump on. If I can just do little integrations every once in a while that people are like, oh, that's different than I thought it was. I do think it's benefit. That's why people always are like, I hope it's not insulting, but what's that on your arm? And I'm like, oh, please ask me. I will talk your ear off about it. Yeah. I would love to.
Yeah. I think it's very important. I'm a little knowledgeable about diabetes and insulin dependent and non-insulin dependent. But I do know a lot of people are afraid of, oh my God, what do I do if their blood sugar is low? So as a child, when they would say no sleepovers, did you find that other parents were like, oh my God, what if she comes here and her blood sugar gets low? What do we do? How do we manage that?
Yeah. So whenever I really did luck out. The school that I went to when I was younger, there were 2 other kids in my grade that also had type 1 diabetes, and they had it before I did. So my mom was very good at reaching out to those other parents and being like, hey, would you mind if she came over and stayed over at your house? Because it kind of gave her a peace of mind that the parents knew what they were, talking about. And it kind of developed a close group of friends. And I don't think I ever thought of it as monitored or anything, or a forced friendship. Right. I don't think I realized until I was older that, oh, that's why why we were as close as we were. But I don't think I ever had that feeling of a parent not wanting me there, which is very grateful. Because of that, I think by the time I started going to other people's houses that maybe weren't as familiar, I already knew what to do and I had already figured it out.
Yeah. So that made them a lot more comfortable.
Yeah. Like I said, it was just a luck of the draw regarding having kids in my grade that had it for sure. But it worked out well.
Yeah, juvenile diabetes seems to be a lot more prevalent nowadays, but there are tools to help assist. It used to be everything had to do, you had to stick the finger and draw blood, which nobody wants to do that. Yeah,
no, not at all. And I've seen a lot of people now. I was diagnosed when I was about 7, so people are always, very like, wow, you were so young. And I'm happy it happened when I was as young as I was, because I found that now a lot of juvenile diabetics are being diagnosed in their early 20s, which is very interesting to me. And I'm looking more into what that shift has been, why it's now developing later on. But I don't know. I couldn't imagine being, 23, 24 and changing my whole life. But those advances in technology are for sure amazing. I don't know what I would do without my, my insulin pump, my Dexcom. It's very... it makes it a lot easier to be able to just look at your phone and be like, this is my blood sugar. Cool, I'm going to do insulin.
The education is super important, but it's also inspiring because for the people that are watching, they now realize, wow, she had it when she was 7 and look at her now. So it's certainly inspiring.
I would say, I thank you so much. I appreciate that. I don't think of it as much of anything because I don't remember life before it, but I really do appreciate that you're saying that, and I love hearing that from people as well.
Thank you so much. So have you ever been recognized by someone and said, hey, I watch your show or podcast, or not your podcast, but your platform and your content? Have you ever gotten any feedback from anyone that recognizes you? Or
Yeah, there's a girl named Laura, and I'm close with her now. But I remember the first time that ever happened, I was in Target, and I had just left a workout, so I'm sweaty and in my leggings and a t-shirt. And she came up to me and she was like, "Oh, breakfast at Lauren's," and I was like, I just froze. And I remember thinking, I have a friend and her name's Sarah. And I was like, oh, I wish I would have reacted the way I know she would have,
Right.
But I was like, hi, I don't know your name, but nice to meet you. And I hope you have a good night. So I didn't know what to do. Now when that happens, I'm a little more well-versed than that. But I remember that being the first time being like, that's really cool. That someone that's I'm not direct friends with, still knows what I do, I guess, and can acknowledge that. It was really an interesting experience that I don't know. I wasn't prepped for, I guess.
Yeah. Makes you feel like you made a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me how you decide to, what goes into the decision making of what I share and what I keep private?
I think a lot of it, what I keep private is regarding other people's lives. I don't like to go out there and, shove a camera in someone's face, or if I have some friends that love to create content. I have my little circle that they all do the same thing, and that's very cool. When I leave that circle, I always am like, are you sure you want to be on this? I want to make sure that you're okay being in this photo or you're okay being in this video, and I won't force that. If a friend wants to make a video together, that's awesome. If not, I'm not gonna sit there and pressure them or anything like that. I think a lot of what I post is very self-centered and once again, in the least narcissistic way. I just find it a lot easier to kind of respect people and their boundaries and their wishes with that. But I really enjoy creating content, and any reason to dress up and go kind of dance around and explore new places and support businesses especially, I love. But honestly, the way I decide what goes up, I'm just like, oh, this feels good to me. This feels like it uplifts my soul, and that 13-year-old me would think it would be really cool to see this, And that's my big reference point is like, would younger me think this is awesome? Cool, it's up.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's very energetic. It's also inspiring as well. That's why we love it. And it is cool when you can touch other people's lives and maybe brighten up their day.
Thank you so much.
Your energy, certainly does that. When you're doing this type of work, obviously you come in contact with a bunch of different type of people. Mm-hmm. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you felt like boundaries are being crossed?
I feel like with work things, sometimes I'm like, okay, I really have to have a backbone, especially in the hospital, everyone thinks that they're right and it all overlaps and it's a very high stress environment. I don't know that I've ever had that situation regarding content creation. If I have, it's out of my head now, but
yeah.
I don't know. I always just see content creation though as like my giant playground. So as long as I don't feel uncomfortable, which if I were to, I would just leave the scenario. But I don't think I've ever had a negative correspondence with it, I guess is the way to put that.
Great. That's also reassuring as a dad that if you didn't feel comfortable, you would just walk out because, we're parents first. I'm sure your dad's glad to hear that, and your mom as well.
Comments on Instagram used to get me really, really bad. And I'm very lucky, once again, that a lot of the people that follow me are very supportive. I did, there's always going to be that one person, or, the video that goes viral of I had my car accident, like someone hit my car and I posted a video because the bumper sticker was very funny. It said hot girls hit the curb and someone rammed my car into a curb while it was parked. But there were a lot of comments under that were like, you are single-handedly ruining the vision of women and, all this stuff. And I was like, it took everything in me to not be like, I wasn't in the car. I was like, but I think it teaches me too. I'm like, I don't need to waste the energy and I can just take a deep breath. And at the end of the day, if I want it to come down, archived or delete. And I was like, as long as it's making a majority of people laugh and chuckle and have a good day, we'll take it. But I think it definitely, makes you grow a backbone a little bit when people aren't the nicest to you.
I think you're always going to have the occasional term, as they say, sometime hater, just sometimes for no reason. But as long as you know what your intent was, I think you can stand by that.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's really cool. Yeah.
I think doing anything regarding content creation and influencer stuff as well, you see a different side of people that, maybe you did respect at one point and you're like, why would you send me that? Or anything like that. I think it definitely teaches me to navigate a lot more than I really thought I would have to going into it. I was like, I thought it was going to be like, look at my dress. And instead of, it's very much so being like, oh, I'm seeing a different side of you today. Yeah. And how do I respond to that in a respectful way that also distances myself, So
you mentioned your group and you've collaborated with a few other influencers. Yeah. And obviously you have to be selective. How do you go about choosing who to collaborate with and how do they go about doing that? Do they just DM you? Because you also have to protect your privacy and not be accessible to everyone.
A lot of them DM me. A lot of the people that I collaborate with frequently, we're already close friends, and these are people that I thank them very frequently. I'm very big on if I didn't say it or write it or make it known, it doesn't matter. And so I tell them all the time, I'm like, thank you for kind of taking me under your wing. My goal was not to get into content creation or influencer stuff. I got invited to a pool party for an apartment opening, and it was a group of foodies, which I was not, and I think they thought Breakfast at Lauren's was a food account. And so I showed up and I was ready to swim. I was in my swimsuit, and everyone else was in gorgeous sundresses and ready for golden hour and pictures of the food. And I got there and I was by myself, and Ace and Mary and Sadie and everyone that I collaborate with that are, bigger influencers in St. Louis, they were all like, are you here by yourself? Do you need a group? And kind of took me under their wing, and we've been attached to the hip ever since. And I told them all the time, especially right before I came here, I'm like, thank you for not being rude or not being like, who's that girl? Kind of like pointing her out. Or I was like, thank you for introducing yourself and making your name known and for kind of taking me under your wing, because I wouldn't be here, I don't think, if they hadn't said hi that day, And I think it's crazy how the world works and how simply getting someone's name can change your entire world for the better. I think it's very cool, though.
I think all you guys are very brave, because when you do this, there's a certain level of vulnerability that you put out there, because people get to see you. Some people expect you to look a certain way, but that's also glad to hear that it's not so competitive. I think a lot of people wonder, and sometimes you hear stories. I saw something probably about a week ago that there were two creators or influencers, whatever you want to call these guys, that kind of got into it on the streets. But it sounds like that your group and network in St. Louis is very supportive and kind of work together.
Yeah, for sure. I think St. Louis in general, don't get me wrong, I feel like it's a split down the middle between who's like, get me out of here, and I hear people say misery instead of Missouri and all of this. I love it. I as a child was always like, oh, I'm gonna move far away and I'm gonna get out of the Midwest. And now growing up, I think it's so cool how tight knit of a community that I've been fortunate enough to see. Not everyone gets that side of it where they walk into a restaurant and they're like, oh, I know the chef and I know this person and this waitress, and I'm very, very privileged to get to see that side of how things work in St. Louis and in the industry. But I do think it is very tight knit in St. Louis, and I've gone to other cities and stuff where it's not necessarily that same community. And even if you haven't met someone, like you reference them and everyone has so many good things to say, and it's very, very uplifting. It makes me feel better about what I do too, that maybe I don't leave a room and people say horrible things. Like I always hear that it's been very positive as well.
I am glad to hear that they're treating you well. I would hate to think that someone with your energy and your smile and trying to make a difference would be treated badly. So I'm glad to hear that they're supportive. And I also see male content, male creators is growing in St. Louis as well, like sure. Braden and some other influencers. Have you had an opportunity to work with them? Or
yeah, so off the top of my head, Ace and Corey and Braden and everyone they're amazing. I didn't even think about that. I feel like it is majorly male-led in St. Louis, which I feel like is a different, kind of swing of the pendulum from most cities where it's pretty female forward, which is a really cool thing for St. Louis, especially to, kind of be more level on the playing field, I guess, that social media doesn't have to just be for the girlies who want to go, post in the dress and everything. Like, it really is content focused. It's not so much about, like, what you look like or anything. It's, are you a good person? Can you communicate? And how are your videos and photos and stuff holding up?
And what's your intent? And I'm glad people are trying to uplift St. Louis and bring out something positive, because if you want to complain about it, there's always an opportunity to do something positive and be seen in a different light. And it's good that St. Louis is being noticed for something positive.
Yes, for sure. We need it. I think, like I said, it's funny because I only ever see it in a positive light, which is really odd considering I work in a, PCU where I do see the gunshots and all of that very frequently. But for some reason, I don't know if it's just because of that, not the platform that I have, but the insight that I've seen on the people that I speak to. I don't know if that's why I'm so comfortable there and I feel very safe there, or maybe I'm just, maybe it just all goes over my head. I don't know. But
well, they say your perception is your reality.
Yeah.
And it seems like you have a great perception. A lot of people struggle with being in your field. It's different when a person comes in and they were in a car accident. Mm-hmm. It's different again when you come in and you see that there was violence behind it, maybe a gunshot or maybe domestic violence or whatever that could be. So, you have to be able to put that all in perspective, and it seems like you do that very well.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I think sometimes it's a rose-colored glasses situation. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I've seen some horrible things, especially in the hospital, where it's like, I didn't think another human being could do this to another, very twisted, very scary. But I also fully believe that if I go looking for trouble, I'll find it. So I just won't do that. Right. And if I live my life terrified, I'm never going to leave my house. If you see people with, the injuries you can get from simply tripping in a puddle. I saw someone that, had his skin and his bone and stuff eaten away down to the bone because he tripped in a Chick-fil-A parking lot. Like, the water got in the cut and it just kept, breaking down. If I got scared of every single thing I saw, I don't think I would ever live, I think I'd regret it. I think I'd never leave my room, honestly.
Yeah. Well, we thank you for your courage and we thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah. But your privacy is also important, too, and you do a good job of protecting that as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Right. So talk to me about any misconceptions that there may be for a young woman who is about to or wondering whether or not they should go out and create a page and create a platform, because it takes more than just a pretty face to do what you do.
I think that is a misconception that you can, if you wear something more revealing that you're going to get a following, or if you, go out and make something very suggestive or crazy or very forward, that's the best way to get that. And I don't believe that at all. I think you need to be fully you. I think to be charismatic and not sit there and think, and I know it's easier said than done, but to not leave your house going, oh, what is everyone else going to think? I made a small little video this morning regarding meeting you two, and I was like, if I had walked out of that house today and been like, I should not wear the bright purple sweater with the clouds knit into it and all of the textures and everything to match this cafe, then I probably wouldn't have, I know I wouldn't have been here in Paris with you two today, like if I had walked out and been like, maybe I shouldn't wear that. Or if I hadn't said hi, I think being able to communicate and able to speak and being able to introduce yourself and be polite, I think that gets you a very, very, very far way as well. And I think that's where a lot of my following came from too, is I travel a lot, but I also make sure that any waiter or waitress, or if someone holds a door for me, it's like, oh, hi, what's your name? And don't get me wrong, Am I the best at remembering? No. I have a very long ongoing list in my notes app of this is the person that I met in New York behind this bookshelf or whatever, and this is what they looked like, and this is the conversation. And I write the name there because if I see the person again, I want to know. But I think it's something people don't think about enough. But I think to create a page, you have to be able to do that. You have to be able to communicate and show who you are. There's enough people out there, and there's AI now too, where there's enough people out there and, revealing clothing and, just posting, if you're showing your makeup for the day and you really are showing the process of how to do it, I find that so amazing. But you have to have a personality behind it and some creativity, and I don't think people realize that as much, and I really hope that they start doing that, because seeing people's new creative ideas on all of these platforms, I get so excited, and I know it's very inspiring to me and to other people as well.
Yeah. So we're big fans, obviously, of your content. It's very energetic. It's kind. It's respectful. And like you say, you don't cross boundaries. And it seems like some people just go for the shock value. It's like, I'm going to shock them to get the clicks.
Yeah.
And you don't do that. So, but when you're for instance, going to restaurants, and I'm sure you take into considerations, given the amount of talk that goes into about what we're consuming in our bodies with GMOs in America and stuff like that. So obviously when you visit a restaurant or you're presenting something, you take into consideration the type of foods and sources, although sometimes it's hard because there's not so many sources out there.
I have enjoyed that part about France already, is that everything is posted, on the outside of the restaurant, and this is what it is, and this is what went into it. That's been amazing. I wish it would be a little bit more like that in the States. But yeah, I already have to, kind of account for what is in my food regarding carb counting for my blood sugar and my insulin. So I do like to know where things are sourced. We are lucky in St. Louis to be pretty, I don't want to say forward in that, but it's definitely on the up regarding farm to table restaurants and sources as well. And I'll say, I'm not the healthiest person in the world. I don't go out and, only eat what I directly picked or anything like that. I wish I was like that. But yeah, I agree with you regarding knowing what goes into it. It's very tricky in America for sure. Whenever you think you're eating these whole foods and you're like, oh, I'm going to eat brown rice and chicken today. And then you're like, actually, this chicken is made in a lab and the rice has plastic in it. So that is very tricky, and it's a very difficult thing to navigate there for sure.
One of the things that we found interesting here is there's a score on the food. When you go to the supermarket here, everything from cookies and things have like an A, B, C, D, or E. So it kind of helps.
Oh, cool. Is A is the best?
Yeah. So if you're just visit the grocery store, you'll see like A, B, C, D, E. So it's like,
that's amazing.
Buyer beware, be warned. Here are the cookies. They're an E, and it may contain bioengineered food, but at least you know.
Yeah, and I think, even as something as simple as that would be so beneficial. I'm in the medical field, so I can understand the cash grab that is medicine, and I would be ignorant to say that I don't support it. I think it's miserable. I don't love the healthcare system in that aspect. I love working it. Don't love the amount that they make, and what seems like a never-ending cycle of injuries and diagnoses to get that. So I say that I don't understand why every country, every state, everywhere doesn't do that. But
sometimes it's profit over people, and in a system that prides itself on capitalism, sometimes you have to say, hey, are we doing the best what we could possibly do for our citizens and maybe the people?
Yeah.
And you mentioned from maybe the farm to the table. One of the other things that I noticed while being here, there are a lot of small markets and a lot of small places to get fresh fruit and fresh vegetables. And the refrigerators aren't 4 times the size they are in the U.S. So I think they kind of encourage, but it also forces you to go out more frequently and get fresh vegetables and fruits, as opposed to ones that have been massively processed or preserved. So, yeah.
I didn't even notice that. Well, I mean, I'm in a hotel, so I didn't notice the refrigerator situation, but that's so interesting. I think that is really, I mean, that's very beneficial, though. You go to America and you have the double doors swing open.
For two people.
Yeah. And it's like, even if you go to the farmer's market, if it's not genetically modified from the grocery store, it's going to go bad. And by the time you even touch it,
It's fun for me to walk down the street and see so many little small shops and actually butcher shops. It's just like which have basically gone by the wayside in the States. So, you know, it certainly helps you navigate that. Well, that's great. So in the industry, is there like, and people want to know like a dark side. Unfortunately, we are bombarded now about a dark side of Hollywood. And we know in any place like that where there's money to be made, there's predators and things like that. So have you come across anything like that, maybe in the influencer and creator industry, to where you just got a bad vibe? Maybe a photographer is like, hey, that person isn't really here to uplift content, or, you know, they're here for other reasons. Have you ever come across a situation like that?
I've been lucky regarding photography to not. However, I've been part of conventions where we've gotten messages, you know, halfway through the week or whatever, saying like, oh, this photographer had a model shooting in this location, and because they were alone, they took advantage of it. And that's a very disappointing and upsetting situation. I always tell my friends, getting into photography, getting into videography, anything, I'm like, I don't care if I'm supposed to be sleeping before work. If you're going alone, call me and I'm there. You know, and my friends do the same for me. If I go to a photo shoot and I haven't met this photographer before, they're by my side, you know, which I'm very lucky to have. And I would strongly suggest for no one to ever meet someone by themselves. I would love to say I trust everyone. I don't. But it would be really cool if I could. But just sadly, in this day and age, you kind of have to hesitate a little bit with that, and then, you know, carry on. But dark side regarding social media, I think a lot of people I think to everyone else it's not real, you know? And at the end of the day, like, I wake up and yes, it's a cute outfit video in front of the Eiffel Tower, but that's still, like, that is still real to me, you know? So when people message, I've been lucky to not have too many, like, mean things, but just very disrespectful things, like in the DMs and stuff like that, you know. I think people don't process that, like, this is still a real place and I'm still a real person. And if you said that to me, I would probably run to the nearest police station. And, you know, like, it is scary, and it makes me scared because a lot of kids now, like, I see 6-7-year-olds on their Instagram and on their TikTok, and, you know, I'm like, that's so scary, because if I'm like 24 and, you know, these people are comfortable to say that, knowing that I am a nurse and I have a tendency to, you know, not fight back, but just be like, why would you say that? You know, I can't imagine how misleading it is to children who think that they're talking to someone younger than they are, or that think that they're talking to a reputable adult, or it really does make me nervous. A lot of things with children these days makes me nervous. I would love to be a mom one day. Also absolutely terrified regarding social media and the food situation, which we kind of touched on yesterday, but I had been talking to her about how a lot of these kids now with, like, you know, the like the energy drinks and the electrolyte drinks and stuff, looking at the levels of, like, magnesium and stuff like that, kids were hospitalized when a certain YouTuber was promoting these drinks to 6-7-year-olds. And I'm like, I called my mom immediately and I was like, do not let my younger brother touch this, you know. But yeah, it's scary regarding especially social media. I don't know if there is even a way to control that, short of telling your child, no, you can't have this, you know. But it is intimidating for sure.
Well, you seem very conscious and cognizant about the amount of power and influence that you may have over the people that watch, and I think that's great. It's also good to find out that you have a supporting cast. It sounds like you guys kind of vet other opportunities. Oh, I don't want to use the term vet. I mean, if you get an opportunity, hey, I had an opportunity, or I was DM'd by this particular person. Does anybody know this person? Has anybody ever heard about this person? Do you guys kind of do that before accepting a collaboration or going out on an opportunity?
Yes, for sure. I will, if it's something regarding fashion or photography, I'll message some of my, my girlfriends that they do the same thing, and we all do kind of bounce off of each other. And even if it's a restaurant and they're like, oh, 2 of you guys can come out, and I'm like, I've never heard of this, I'll invite a friend to come that also does content creation. So, they get their content from it, but also I'm not going alone. But yeah, we do all kind of bounce off of each other and be like, hey, have you ever heard of this person? Or sometimes, and I don't think people realize how far their actions and their words can go. But I've gone as far to be like, hey, I saw this place on Yelp or on the map or whatever, and I've never heard of it. Would you like to go? And sometimes you hear like, no, they treat their staff horribly. And we have heard that, I don't think people realize how far word of mouth can go for sure. But we do all bounce off of each other, and we don't. We all make a collective effort to not promote something that is a negative environment or that doesn't treat the people that work with them kindly. Or
women that, yeah, that's important.
I don't think people realize that part of social media either. Like, there is quite a bit of navigation regarding what you will and will not post.
Yeah.
But
Great. So what do you see Breakfast at Lauren's going within the next year or so? I
think that this trip has opened up a lot to me regarding international travel. It was something I was very, very scared of
Really?
Up until this. Well, yeah, and I hear all of these stories, and I feel like you watch the news, you hear the worst of the worst. So I was like, I'm going to leave the country and fly somewhere, and I'm going to get lost, or I'm going to, go missing, or I'm not going to be able to get back. And I think that did kind of spiral in my head, but now I'm here and I'm so comfortable, and I'm like, I could do this a lot more frequently than I have been,
Well, it seems like you're having a lot of fun.
It is. And once again, I stand by saying if I look for trouble, I'm sure I'll find it. But I really do feel so comfortable in this, a lot more than I thought I would regarding traveling internationally for my first time. So I think this has been really cool. So I think that's something in the books over the next year. Also a lot more working with photographers. I kind of got back into that this past year regarding modeling. I've always, not always, but I guess since I was like 8 or 9, I've always been in the front of a camera in some way, shape, or form. My mom loves photography as a hobby, and so she would take my brother and I out to like a field and tell him to hold the reflector while I just went and messed with different poses and outfits, and she would mess with her settings and just try and learn as we go, so shout out to my mom, because she's probably another big reason why I do all of this now, But I think working with photographers has been something that I've been doing a lot more in the past couple of months. I've been in contact with a lot of them, and I know one of them does travel around the world, and he'll be like, hey, I need a model for this if you want to fly out. And I think that'd be really cool to get into. I think that's a really big dream of mine. Like I said, I want to dip a toe into everything. So balancing that with nursing will be my next kind of big feat to get
that sounds
get around.
Great. Yeah, I mean, you've got a full plate already.
Yeah.
Any additions to that plate? Anything that you say, what, I think I want to do this all well. Also, because it certainly seems like you have the energy to balance other things.
Yeah, it's funny because I always pick up like a very niche hobby like once a year, and currently this is such a grandma thing to say. I've been really enjoying trying to wax seal envelopes, and I don't know why, but I do really, at the end of the day, I think I want to get more into like the athletic side of things, getting back into tumbling. Like I said, I coached that for 4 or 5 years. I think I want to get back into the gym a lot more frequently, no matter if it's on the coaching side or me actually getting back into the tumbling side. Would also just love to, the basics of everyone's bucket list. Would love to go skydiving, would love to go hike in the mountains, would love to go do all of that. I love all of the active.
Skydiving is cool. I've done a couple of tandem jumps myself. So
I think I would love it once I got off the plane into the air.
Yeah.
I think the lead up might get me.
The lead up in the first 5 seconds. So, yeah. After that,
I think it'd be really cool.
It's all good.
Yeah. And then you pass out. I hope I don't pass out.
No, you won't. You seem to enjoy the excitement.
I do.
Of your life, of life in general.
Yeah.
And,
I love romanticizing everything. I think that's a really big part of enjoyment. I mean, in general, I think like I said, you can choose to be a lot of things. You can choose to be scared. You can choose to be really upset at the world. You can choose to be a lot. But, at the end of the day, I'm very much so the person that, like, if I'm in traffic and everyone's yelling, I'm like, cool, we get to hang out and listen to a song together. That's perfect.
Yeah.
To the point where I'm sure some people don't like that. But
yeah, I think in today's world, gratitude is so important because you can certainly find things to be grateful for. And it seems like you're grateful for your platform, the opportunities you've been presented with, but also to help people. Do you still work as a tumbling coach part-time or affiliated with?
On and off. So basically they told me whenever I can come in that I can do that. And like I said, I want to get more into that again. Definitely kind of lost it getting into nursing and balancing all of the other things. But now that I've kind of got my groove down, I want to get back in there. It's funny because I work, like I said, in a PCU with adults. And I told myself when I coached tumbling and gymnastics, I would never ever work with adults because they scared me, and I would never work in an emergency setting. So here we are. But I really want to get back to working with kids. I feel like it kept me so young in my head, and I feel like it really did bring me so much joy. I feel like there's such a light in me when I get to work with kids, even though they will humble you every day of your life. I'm sure you guys both know.
Yeah.
But I think I really want to get back to it. I think that is what makes my heart so happy, is working with them. And not necessarily in the aspect of like, oh, they're so cute, but I'm like, I love helping a small person learn to navigate the world in a positive way. And I think that's why I have always said, like, I want to be a mom. Like, one day, like, that's my goal. Even though the world is terrifying, that's my goal, But it's something that is really rewarding, I guess, that you can sit there and this kid could have the worst day of their life and they come into this gym and you just made it seem like the best one, and even if they lost, you're like, hey, we're really about to learn how to handle things when it doesn't go our way. Right. And I think that it teaches me too while I teach them, as I'm like, hey, I need to keep this in mind next time. Maybe things don't go my way either, Very important. I think if anyone can ever work with kids, they should. But
because their light and their energy is just so pure. And it just reminds you. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you sit there and you teach them what you think a person should be. And then you look at yourself and you're like, am I even doing that? And I think it makes you a better person being around them, I love it so much.
You'll do great. Yeah,
Thank
your
you.
parents have done a great job. I think you'll pass
I agree.
that along.
I couldn't be more grateful for them. They really went through everything, and I just got lucky enough to go back up to Connecticut, which is where I wouldn't. I only spent like a year and a half there when I was younger, but hearing their story about having no money, and my dad enrolled in the military, and they were scraping by trying to get my mom through college, and my dad he lived on the streets and everything when he was younger. So they were really trying to build something out of nothing. And the fact that they have still been such a positive influence to me, and I was a spoiled child. If I wanted something, they made it happen. They may not have had the means to do it always, but they were going to make it happen,
And support is great.
And very supportive. And it's just so interesting to me that they had nothing. Yeah. And yet somehow I'm, in a position where I'm a nurse and I'm here in Paris and I have these supporting people that are like, yes, don't ever take no for an answer, which is so cool. They're the best. I couldn't be more grateful for them.
Any big time or future collabs coming up that we should know about? Anybody that?
Oh, goodness.
Yeah,
dream collab?
Yeah, dream collab.
My goodness.
What would your dream collab be?
I think
beside being on
it's this. Yes. This is my dream collab. Honestly, this is amazing. This is, like I said, I am just mind blown that I'm even here. And I really do want to thank you guys so much for that. I couldn't be more grateful. And my mom even said, she was like, let me call them after you're done.
We certainly like the fact that you bring an energy and also recognition to people that serve. You mentioned earlier that there are people behind the scenes that are working hard in restaurants and some of these other industries that make sure that our experiences are pleasant. And that's part of what, we do here. I mean, sometimes we take that for granted, and we're glad that you point those things out in the service industry.
Thank you so much. I wish more people thought about it, but I don't know. I guess I just woke up one day and I was like, that the person that brought me my water at the restaurant, when was the last time someone was like, thank you, what's your name?
Exactly.
Or like, how has your day been? Because typically they're very disrespected and not treated the best.
And it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. It is important. I wish everyone would kind of start asking.
So at 24, it seems like you're somewhat wise beyond your years and have done a lot of things. So what advice would you give to your younger self?
First off, thank you for saying that, because I think that's the nicest compliment I could ever get. However, younger self, I would say, honestly, just don't hold back. Like, don't be ashamed of anything. Go wear the sparkly dress with the sunglasses that are way too big for your face, and, go try the eyeliner. Why not? And say hi to everyone. Don't hesitate. Like I said, I was very introverted, and I was like, I will not speak unless spoken to. And I wore my, my sweatpants and my hair in a bun every day, and I was like, please just don't interact with me. I was very girly outside of, school and at home and stuff, but never wanted to show it because I was ashamed. I was like, this is not what everyone else does. So that's what I would tell myself is, go live life to the fullest. You only have one of them. I'm only 24, and I feel like very young to be saying that. Like, like, just make the most of it. Like I said, if I knew then that the difference that someone's saying, you are wise beyond your years, or you've lived so many lives in this time, if I knew how much of an impact that would have on me now, I would have started so much earlier. I'd have been, just being myself. I think it gets you very, very, very far. And that's so cliche to say, but...
Yeah. I have to put on the dad lens because, like I said, I've got a daughter approximately your age. So how do you go about reassuring your dad and other dads out there who have daughters in this type of industry that it's okay, she can do this, and she'll be safe, she'll be okay?
Yeah.
Look at Lauren.
Oh my goodness, that's a really good question. I do believe it is how they are raised, and not to like project that onto anyone. I think I'm very fortunate where my dad has always been, whatever you say, even if he didn't agree with me, there's been some not intelligent choices I've made that he's sat down with him and like, I don't agree, and I think this was a horrible idea, but if you can back it and you can tell me why, I'll meet you in the middle, And I think to be able to explain what are you doing and why are you doing it, I think that gives a peace of mind. I think a mutual trust is really, really, really important. But I think, I think at the end of the day, do you have that close-knit relationship? Do you feel like you can trust them? Obviously, like I said, if they're going to go fly to Paris and actually say they're in Tennessee and not contact you at all, that's obviously a different ball game. But I mean, at some point you do have to let go, and I think that's scary. And I'm only saying that at 24 with no kids, but I can only imagine. I mean, my stomach drops when I think about letting my child go, and I don't even have a child, so I'm like, I leave my cat for too long and I'm nervous. But I think you can only do so much to like set them up, but you be there and communicate with them. Don't sit there and, hover over their shoulder, but be someone they can talk to. Yeah. I think being able to call and be like, hey, Dad, I messed up, and not be scared to get screamed at or to be, afraid to be ridiculed or anything. I think to have that dynamic where I can call and be like, hey, I'm not proud of this, but this is what I did, and how do I get out of it? I think that kind of dynamic is important. Mutually, though, where if, you had an issue too, where you could call her, and I know a lot of people say that's not a parent's place, but on the, depending on the extent, I guess, for sure, but a mutual give and take relationship for sure. I think that's the most reassurance you can get, is that like I said, I'm here, and if he calls, I'm answering. If I call, he will too. Yeah. But you can only hold so tight before you're kind of restricting their ability to live and to be themselves. And Yeah, and I think that's important because, you know, you're not going to be there right by their holding their hand forever, and you got to be ready for that moment where you're like, okay, I can see you going in the right direction. I have to let you go, and I know you'll come back, and, you know, so I don't know, such an emotional topic.
You hit the key points. You've hit the key points. Trust, and obviously you've earned that respect, you know, from your parents. But also understand there's a big age gap I mean, between people like my age, and if we kind of understand, because you mentioned your dad said, if you can help me understand, and I think because of the age gap, we have a difficult time not only navigating social media, but also understanding, you know, why they're sharing so much of their personal lives. So.
Well, no, and for sure. And I put my dad through the ringer. Like, I've made some very questionable decisions regarding, like, my own interpersonal relationships and, you know, things that I've done. But I think I kind of, you know, forced him to be like, okay, I have to be okay with it. I don't agree, but let's work together, you know. I could have probably gone a million different better ways with that, but I very much so appreciate him being able to work with me. And I always joke with him, I'm like, I think you've gotten soft in your old age, Dad. And because, you know, he used to always be very like, let's crack the whip and get to the bottom of this, you know. And now he's definitely been more of an ally, and we're working together against the problem and not making each other the problem for getting into that position, you know.
So what do you see Lauren 10 years from now?
Oh my goodness.
34.
Oh,
it's still very young. I mean, 10 years from now it's 34, and that's still very young. But
I hope
trust me, it goes by really fast. It'll be there before you know it.
I hope that I've taken some proper steps towards the diabetes education goal. I already kind of have started looking into classes where I can be a reference on my floor for any questions people have with diabetes. But I do, I'd guess around, like, you know, 30 to 35, somewhere in there. I think that's kind of when I would want to swing the pendulum back towards pediatric nursing, kind of get that going. Because, like I said, that's where my heart is. I love what I do now, and I think it's very cool to learn as much as I do every day and learn that we, like, can leech people's fingers to get blood flow back and, you know, all of these things that I'm like, I did not know that was a part of nursing. Yeah. But I think it's cool to be in a, like, trauma-dominated department. I think it's very cool. But at the end of the day, I know what makes my heart happy and what kind of brings the light back in me, and it's definitely pediatrics. So I think that career-wise is where I'd want to be. Like I said, I also think traveling a lot more. And now that I've seen this and been like, oh, it's achievable and it's tolerable, like I can actually do this and not be scared and not
even
feel
on a tight schedule.
I think it'd be really cool to come back over here and, you know, explore different countries as well. This is the furthest I've ever been from home, but I love it. I love it so much.
Well, we hope you enjoyed, and thank you for
Thank you. So that's the 10-year goal, is travel more and swing back to doing pediatric stuff soon.
Do you think people underestimate how hard your generation works? Because I hear a lot of people say, oh, these kids nowadays, but you're doing nursing, you're doing modeling, you are an advocate for juvenile diabetes. You do so much and you're working so hard. So do we underestimate how hard you guys are really working to make a difference and put positive information out there and move forward?
I don't want to, like, discredit anyone before me. I feel like everyone that I know that's older than me, you know, they talk about they served during all of these hard times and they did a lot more physical labor for sure. I think a lot of it is they're like, oh, these kids on their phone, you know, that's so easy. And I don't think people always process that a lot of what we do regarding work can also be on the computer and the phone. We're in this, I don't know,
digital
kind of like
age.
Swing, you know, decade or two where it's so crazy that, like, being born, we're like, okay, we have our flip phone and now we have AI robots and, you know, all of this stuff. But I feel like our world, like, circles around technology now, which is terrifying. But yeah, I don't think people process that I go to my physical job 40 hours a week, you know, and then I do other jobs with modeling, maybe another 10 to 12 hours a week. And then when I get on my phone and it looks like I'm playing on my phone, it's like, oh, I'm actually doing these brand deals and I'm responding to emails and I'm, you know, getting everything done.
That's your outlet.
So yeah, I don't think people process that, oh, these kids and their technology, it's like, they are also a good amount of the time. Don't get me wrong. There's still people that just scroll and scroll and scroll, and I'm guilty of it sometimes. I'm not saying I'm always working, but it is a lot of people that aren't necessarily just on it for fun, you know, that they're still getting stuff done. And like I said, I think that prior jobs were a lot more physical labor. I think that now a lot of it is emotional. I think a lot of it is very mental, for sure.
Yeah.
Because even even the posting and stuff, like, yeah, it's just your brain's always on it, you know? I don't consider that a job at all. Like, even the brand deals and stuff like that, I love creating the videos. I love doing all of it. Yeah. Like I said, it's my big playground. Yeah. But I think it's kind of disregarded how hard people work, and I think anything regarding I don't want to say online, because I think like tech and IT and stuff, that is still respected. I think anything regarding social media or promotion, I think it's looked down on. And I always tell people, like, I've had multiple people, especially in the past year and a half, come to me and be like, oh, so you have a brain and you use it? And I think that the perception I get on social media is I'm this ditzy girl that runs around and dresses and, you know, eats macarons all day. Like, I don't think people process that, like, I'm a nurse and that I do all of this stuff.
Well, I can reassure them nothing is further from the truth.
Well, yeah, I've had people very, like, wholeheartedly say that to my face the past quite a few times. I think like 3 or 4 times now this year so far. And people can think what they want to think, but
they don't really
I do
know.
think that regarding working online or in photography or as a model or anything, people automatically assume you aren't the brightest, or that, you know, you're not working hard. Or, I mean, even some of these shoots, like, you're in heels for 8-9 hours and they have you holding stuff above your head and you're dripping sweat and it's muggy and there's no AC in there.
It's work.
It is. And it feels like it should be fun. And you're like, there's nothing to complain about. Like, I asked for this, but also, why am I going to pass out and I haven't eaten all day, you know?
Right.
But yeah, I think there's just a lot more types of work than were accepted prior. I don't think that either generation or, you know, age worked less than the other.
Yeah.
But I do think there's just different kinds of work that are accepted now regarding online and a little bit less of a physical labor aspect.
Yeah. So what is the kindest thing someone has ever said, or the most positive thing that has come out of you creating your content and putting information out there?
Obviously, I find it very uplifting when people say I inspire them. I think that's very cool. I always joke with them. I'm like, are you sure that's good? But no, I do take it to heart, and I think that's so cool that someone can see my page and be like, I want to create photos like that, or I want to go out and live and try all these new things the way she is. I also, like I said, the biggest compliment that I can get is when people say you have lived beyond your years, or like your life experiences are just so far beyond your age. I think I've gotten that more this year than I ever have in my life, and I tear up a little bit every time I hear it. I'm like, I didn't know that was my goal until I heard it, and I'm like, that's all I could ever want, is to be like, whoa, you've done all of these things and you're only 24. You know, I can only imagine what it'll be when I'm 50. Like,
so it's reassuring for you. It makes you feel like you're on the right track.
Yeah, it makes me feel like I'm living, and I feel like that's kind of hard in like a small town in, you know, O'Fallon, Illinois, or even a small city like St. Louis. Like, it's not seen as a place that people go to like live all of these major life experiences, but people have been reassuring me that I somehow am, and I think that's really cool. I think
you're
that's
making it bigger.
The best thing. I think that's the best compliment I could ever get, for sure.
Good. So it's been a pleasure. Lauren, thank you for joining us. We certainly appreciate you sharing
Thank you for
your
having
time
me.
with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much. This is, like I said, this is such a dream. Thank you guys for letting it happen.
From scrubs to reels, Lauren Stanley is a true example of how you don't have to fit into a box to make a difference. You can heal, you can educate, and you can also be a positive influence to humanity when you're not saving lives. Thank you again for joining us at You've Been Served Global Edition. I'm your host, Ken Corbin. And remember, be kind, be safe, and be positive.